All right, buckle up because today we're diving into a story that sounds like it's straight out of a cyberpunk novel. We're talking Silk Road, a hidden online marketplace where you could buy just about anything illegal, drugs, weapons, stolen data, all using Bitcoin.
What's fascinating about Silk Road is that it wasn't just a black market. It was this kind of social experiment, a libertarian utopia for some, fueled by this promise of anonymity and freedom from government control. But of course, for law enforcement, it was a nightmare scenario.
And get this, at its peak, Silk Road was moving millions of dollars in Bitcoin every month. Then in 2013, the FBI swooped in and shut it all down. But that's just the beginning of the story.
Right, when the dust settled. A massive fortune in Bitcoin, 70,000 Bitcoins, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, vanished. It remains one of the biggest unsolved cryptocurrency heists ever.
Okay, so let's unpack this first. Can you paint a picture of how Silk Road actually worked? I mean, how do you even set up an anonymous online marketplace? And what made Bitcoin so crucial to its success?
Think of Silk Road as like an eBay for the dark web. You had buyers, sellers, product listings, reviews, the whole nine yards. But here's the catch. Everything was shrouded in anonymity. To access Silk Road, you needed this special browser called Tor, which bounced your internet traffic through a network of relays, making it super difficult to trace.
Kind of like a digital invisibility cloak.
Exactly. And Bitcoin was the perfect currency for this shadowy world. Remember, Bitcoin transactions are recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain. Anyone can see the flow of funds. But the identities behind those transactions are hidden behind these cryptographic keys.
Hold on, can you break that down a bit more? What does it mean that the identities are hidden behind keys?
Imagine each Bitcoin user has two keys. A public key, which is kind of like your account number, and a private key, which is like your password. When you send Bitcoin, you use your private key to sign the transaction, proving you own the funds. But your actual identity isn't tied to that transaction on the blockchain.
Like a digital signature, but it doesn't reveal who you are.
Precisely. That's what made Bitcoin so attractive to Silk Road users. They could buy and sell illegal goods without revealing their real-world identities.
So we've got this anonymous marketplace, this untraceable digital currency, and millions of dollars flowing through it. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, as with any system, there were vulnerabilities. Silk Road relied on a central server, controlled by its enigmatic founder, Ross Ulbricht, who went by the alias Dread Pirate Rob. And as we know,
Yeah.
any central point of control can become a single point of failure.
So that's where the FBI came in. Tell me about how they managed to bring down this digital fortress.
The SBI investigation. It was like a masterpiece of digital detective work. They used a combination of traditional investigative techniques, like undercover agents infiltrating the marketplace, and cutting-edge cyber forensics to track down Ulbricht and expose Silk Road servers.
I bet that arrest was pretty dramatic, huh?
Oh, absolutely. It was like something out of a Hollywood thriller. They apprehended Ulbricht in a San Francisco library, literally snatching his laptop. Before he could close it and encrypt the evidence.
Wow. Talk about a close call. So the FBI shuts down Silk Road, arrests its mastermind. Case closed.
Right. They seized a hefty chunk of Bitcoin, around 144,000, but a staggering 70,000 Bitcoins. A king's ransom, even by today's standards, simply disappeared.
That's mind-blowing. You're telling me nobody knows what happened to that much Bitcoin?
That's the million-dollar question, or rather, the multi-million-dollar question. It's a mystery that has captivated the cryptocurrency world for years.
Okay, I am officially hooked. Before we dive into the theories about who might have pulled off this heist, let's rewind a bit. Who was this Ross Ulbricht guy? And what led him to create Silk Road in the first place?
Ulbricht was a complex figure. He was a brilliant programmer and physicist with libertarian ideals, a strong believer in individual liberty and limited government. He saw Silk Road as a way to create a free market outside the reach of what he perceived as oppressive laws.
So Silk Road was more than just a black market for him. It was like a statement.
Exactly. He saw it as a way to empower individuals, to give them the freedom to buy and sell whatever they wanted, without interference, of course. The problem was that whatever they wanted often included illegal and dangerous goods.
It sounds like a classic case of good intentions gone wrong, right? This guy creates this platform for freedom, but it ends up being used for all sorts of shady stuff.
That's the paradox of Silk Road. It was this fascinating experiment in online anonymity and free markets, but it also revealed the dark side of human nature.
So we've got this idealistic, yet perhaps naive founder, a hidden online marketplace, millions in Bitcoin. And then, poof, it all vanishes. This is getting good. What are some of the theories about what happened to those missing Bitcoins? All right, so we got 70,000 bitcoins, worth a fortune, just gone, vanished into the digital ether. Where do we even begin to unravel this mystery?
Well, there are a few prevailing theories, each with its own kind of intriguing twists and turns. One possibility is that we're dealing with a highly skilled hacker, or even like a group of hackers, who managed to breach Silk Road security.
Before the FBI could seize all the funds, so picture this. A digital heist worthy of a Hollywood blockbuster. These cyber Robin Hoods swoop in, exploit a vulnerability, and make off with a king's ransom in Bitcoin. It's a tempting theory.
It is, and remember, this was 2013. The cryptocurrency world was still in its Wild West phase. Security practices weren't as robust as they are today, and there were plenty of talented hackers, eager to test their skills.
But if that's the case, wouldn't they have cashed out by now? Surely they couldn't resist turning those Bitcoins into cold, hard cash.
That's where it gets even more interesting. Some of the stolen Bitcoins have actually resurfaced over the years. We've seen them pop up in various transactions, which has led investigators down some very intriguing rabbit hole.
Okay, this is where I need you to hold my hand and walk me through this. How do they even trace these Bitcoins? It's not like there's a serial number on them.
Right, you're right. There's no serial number. But every Bitcoin transaction is recorded on the blockchain, that permanent and public ledger we talked about earlier. So while the identities behind the transactions might be hidden, the flow of funds is visible.
So it's like following a trail of digital breadcrumbs. Only these breadcrumbs are worth millions.
Exactly. And forensic analysts have become incredibly skilled at tracking these trails, piecing together complex webs of transactions to identify patterns and connections.
Okay, so some of the Bitcoins have been traced, but the mastermind behind the heist remains a mystery. That sounds like a challenge even for the best cyber detectives.
It is. And it leads us to another compelling theory, the possibility of an inside job. Imagine a rogue Silk Road administrator, someone with intimate knowledge of the site's inner workings, deciding to pull off the ultimate exit scam.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's like the classic heist movie trope, the trusted insider who betrays everyone for personal gain. What makes you think that's a plausible scenario?
Well, think about it. Who would be in a better position to exploit Silk Road's vulnerabilities
Yeah.
and cover their tracks? Someone who knew the system inside and out, who understood how to manipulate transactions and disappear without a trace.
That's a chilling thought, and I bet there were plenty of people involved in Silk Road who could have fit that description.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the sheer amount of money we're talking about. 70,000 Bitcoins is a life-changing sum. It's the kind of temptation that could make even the most loyal employee reconsider their allegiances.
So we've got the hacker theory, the inside job theory. Is there any other possible explanation for this digital vanishing act?
There's one more theory, and it's perhaps the most controversial of all. Some people believe that corrupt law enforcement officials might have been involved, siphoning off a portion of the seized Bitcoins for themselves.
Whoa, hold on. That's a pretty serious accusation. What evidence is there to support that theory? I mean, isn't that a bit...
Well, cynical. It's certainly a controversial theory. And it's important to emphasize that there's no concrete proof to substantiate it. However, the lack of transparency surrounding the investigation, coupled with the fact that some of the stolen Bitcoins have been linked to individuals with ties to law enforcement, has fueled speculation.
I see. So it's less about hard evidence and more about a lack of clarity that's raising eyebrows.
Precisely. And when you're dealing with vast sums of money and a high-profile case like Silk Road, it's understandable that people would start connecting the dots, even if those connections are speculative.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the mystery of the missing Bitcoins, Silk Road had a massive impact on the world of cryptocurrency. It was like this explosive event that brought Bitcoin into the mainstream spotlight.
You're absolutely right. Before Silk Road, Bitcoin was this kind of niche technology, known mostly to tech enthusiasts and libertarians. But the media frenzy surrounding the case exposed Bitcoin to a global audience.
It's almost like Silk Road was Bitcoin's coming out party, albeit a rather scandalous one.
Exactly. And it sparked this heated debate about the future of cryptocurrency. On the one hand, you had governments and regulators cracking down, concerned about Bitcoin's potential for facilitating illegal activities.
Makes sense. After Silk Road, Bitcoin became synonymous with the dark web and criminal enterprises in the minds of many.
That's right. But on the other hand, you had the blockchain enthusiasts, the true believers in Bitcoin's potential to revolutionize finance, pushing for greater security and transparency to address those concerns.
So it was this double-edged sword. Silk Road exposed the risks of cryptocurrency, but it also fueled the drive to make it better, more secure, more legitimate.
Precisely. It was a pivotal moment that forced the cryptocurrency world to grow up, to confront its vulnerabilities and strive for greater mainstream acceptance.
It's amazing how a single event, as dark as it was, could have such a profound impact on the trajectory of an entire technology.
That's the power of disruption.
Yeah.
Silk Road, for all its flaws, forced the world to take notice of Bitcoin and grapple with its implications, both positive and negative. It was a catalyst for change, and the ripple effects are still being felt today.
All right, let's get back to those missing bitcoins for a second. We've talked about the theories, the investigations, the speculation. But what about the human element? What if we put ourselves in the shoes of the person or persons who pulled this off? What would it take to vanish with that much Bitcoin and stay hidden for all these years? It's a mind-boggling thought, isn't it, to have access to a fortune like that, but to be unable to spend it freely. Imagine the self-control and the strategic planning required to stay hidden while sitting on a digital gold mine.
It is a fascinating paradox. The thief, or thieves, possessed this level of technical sophistication that allowed them to pull off this incredible heist, yet they're also constrained by the very nature of Bitcoin. It's a digital asset that leaves a permanent record of every transaction, making it very challenging to launder effectively.
So if you were the mastermind behind this, what would your playbook look like? How do you vanish with 70,000 Bitcoins and stay off the radar?
Well, step one would be patience. Trying to cash out a large sum of Bitcoin all at once. It'd be like setting off a financial alarm. Instead, you'd need to devise a strategy for slowly and discreetly converting those Bitcoins into other assets without attracting unwanted attention.
Okay, so slow and steady wins the race. But how do you actually go about making those conversions without leaving a trail?
One technique would be to utilize mixing services. Think of them as like digital laundromats for Bitcoin. They essentially jumble together transactions from multiple users, making it much harder to trace the origin and destination of funds.
So it's like throwing your scent off the trail by blending in with a crowd.
Exactly. Another approach would be to gradually move the Bitcoins into privacy coins, which are cryptocurrencies specifically designed to enhance anonymity. They utilize advanced cryptographic techniques to obscure transaction details, making them much harder to trace than Bitcoin.
Got it. So you're essentially making the Bitcoins harder to track. But how do you actually spend them without raising red flags? I mean, you can't exactly walk into a bank and deposit a privacy coin, right?
That's true. This is where decentralized exchanges come into play. These are platforms that allow users to trade cryptocurrencies directly with each other, without the need for a central intermediary, like a bank or a traditional exchange.
And I'm guessing these decentralized exchanges don't require the same level of KYC,
Yeah.
know your customer verification, as traditional financial institutions.
Exactly. Some decentralized exchanges prioritize anonymity, allowing users to trade without providing extensive personal information. This makes them attractive for individuals looking to move funds discreetly, but it also increases the risk of illicit activities.
So it's a high-risk, high-reward game. You can potentially cash out your ill-gotten gains, but you're always walking a tightrope, trying to stay one step ahead of the authorities.
Precisely. And remember, every transaction, every conversion, every move leaves a digital footprint. Investigators are constantly developing new tools and techniques to analyze blockchain data, so staying hidden requires a high level of technical expertise and a meticulous approach.
This whole conversation is making me think about the broader implications of this case. The fact that someone or some group can vanish with a fortune like this raises some pretty unsettling questions about the security and accountability of the cryptocurrency world.
It does. The Silk Road saga and the enduring mystery of the missing Bitcoins serves as a stark reminder that the world of cryptocurrency is still evolving. It offers tremendous potential for innovation and financial freedom, but it also presents unique challenges when it comes to security, regulation, and the ability to track illicit activities.
It's like we're in the early days of the internet all over again, where the rules are still being written and the technology is often outpacing our ability to control it.
That's a great analogy. And just as the internet has had its share of dark corners and criminal elements, so too will the cryptocurrency world. It's up to developers, regulators, and users to work together to create a more secure and transparent ecosystem that can mitigate these risks, while fostering innovation.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Silk Road saga, I'm left with a sense of awe at the sheer audacity of the heist, the mystery surrounding the missing Bitcoins, and the broader implications for the future of cryptocurrency.
It's a story that captures the imagination, isn't it? It has all the elements of a classic thriller, a charismatic and enigmatic mastermind, a hidden online world, a fortune that vanishes into thin air, and a mystery that endures to this day. It's a reminder that in the digital age, fortunes can be made and lost with a few keystrokes, and that the pursuit of wealth and power can lead individuals down some very dark paths.
It's a story that has it all, and it leaves us pondering this enduring question. Will we ever solve the mystery of the missing bitcoins? Will the perpetrators be brought to justice, or will they remain digital phantoms, forever shrouded in the anonymity of the blockchain? Only time will tell.